Let me address very directly, I did not kill my daughter, Jonbenet.
The list of suspects narrows.
There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
What?
Today I will be telling you the story of 6-year-old Jonbenet Ramsey. An innocent 6-year-old girl who lived in Boulder, Colorado, known for her cuteness and her history in pageants. But the main reason why she's well known is because she was murdered in her own home. And the issue with this case is that no one seems to know who killed the 6-year-old little girl. So today I will run you through the story of what happened that day, what happened at the crime scene, who was involved, and what could have happened, and some possible theories of how this event could have took place. The year is 1996, Christmas Eve. At 5 p.m., the Ramseys go to a Christmas party at their neighbor's house. They were there for the majority of the night. At 9:30 p.m., they arrive home. Jonbenet is already asleep. Her father carries her upstairs, puts her to bed. At 10 p.m., everyone else goes to bed, including her mother Patsy, her father John, and her brother Burke. That was the last time any of the three of them saw her alive in the house. At 12 a.m., a neighbor claimed to have heard a very loud screaming noise coming from their home. Another neighbor claimed to see odd lights in their house, like a flashlight of someone breaking in. Neither neighbors called the police at that time. At 5:45 a.m., Patsy Ramsey, the mother of Jonbenet, woke up checking her daughter. When she went into her room, she noticed she was not there, so she went downstairs to try to find her. As she went downstairs on a set of spiral staircases, she noticed 3 pages of paper at the end of the steps. Those 3 pages were a ransom note, which asked for $118,000, which was the same amount that John Ramsey was making as a Christmas bonus from his job. The note also stated that if the police were called, they would behead Jonbenet and kill her. At 5:55 a.m., Patsy calls 911.
911 emergency.
Police.
What's going on?
15th Street.
What's going on there, ma'am?
We have a kidnapping. Hi, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was this?
I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's
Does it say who took her?
What?
Does it say who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says FBTC. Victory. Please.
Okay, what's your name? Are you
Nacy Ramsey, I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
Okay, I'm sending an officer over, okay?
Please.
Do you know how long she's been
No,
gone?
I don't. Please, we just got out. Is you on here? Oh my God, please.
Okay, girl.
There's somebody.
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath,
Please,
okay?
hurry.
Kathy.
As the police arrive, John calls 2 of his neighbors, the Fernies and the Whites. And in between this time, more police show up, and so does a priest. Between that time of the police, the neighbors, and the priest showing up, Fleet White, one of the neighbors, is allowed to go around the house and investigate by himself. No police stopped him, no one told him not to stay put. He was free to roam around the house as he wished. And in between this time, the son, Burke, which was a possible witness, was woken up and taken to the Whites' house by the Whites, the neighbors. They dropped him off and they came back to the crime scene after they dropped him off. It is also allegedly reported at this time, a family friend cleaned off the counters after police dusted for fingerprints, which contaminates the evidence and makes the evidence non-existent. Also between this time, someone noticed in the note that the kidnapper said they would call between 8 and 11 a.m. No one ever called between those times. At 10 a.m., John Ramsey goes to the basement for the first time. He goes around and investigates. That's when he discovers a broken window, which later on, he said he broke that window himself when he was locked out of the house, and he never got it repaired. He claims that that window was broken last year before the death of Jonbenet. At 10:30 a.m., they finally make Jonbenet's room a crime scene. At this time, nothing was considered a crime scene, nothing was closed off. It is now 1 p.m. in the afternoon. Linda asked John Ramsey, Fleet White, and John Fernie to investigate the house from top to bottom. And also at this time, the other police officers, for some reason, left. And she was there by herself. So she was investigating this whole entire thing by herself. She called for backup and no one came. So as Linda instructed John and the two neighbors to investigate the house, John Ramsey immediately goes back to the basement. At 1:03, John goes back into the wine cellar, as they called it, and he looks back in there again. And this time he finds Jonbenet in the cellar. She's laying on the ground, covered in a blanket, rope around her neck and her arms, duct tape across her mouth. And what also wasn't apparent was that her skull was crushed. John Ramsey then continues to take the tape off her mouth, removes the blanket from her body, and pick up her body. At this point, rigor mortis is already set in and her body is stiff and she's already blue. He then proceeds to carry her body upstairs. He places her body in the entryway hallway. At 1:05, Detective Linda Arden moves her body from the hallway to the living room underneath the Christmas tree. And at this time, Patsy Ramsey is hysterical and she comes into the room.
No, no,
At 1:45 p.m., more police show up. The Ramseys are allowed to leave the house without being asked any questions, and that's it. So now that you heard the story of what happened and when it happened, let's talk about all the things that went wrong. So the first thing for me that I noticed that was an issue was that the fact that John Ramsey called over his neighbors and his friends. There was no reason to make that phone call. Why are you inviting people over to a possible crime scene? But the other problem with this whole situation is that when the police came, they did not keep anyone out. They allowed everyone to come in. Everyone could have brought their neighbors, their mamas, and their daddies into the house at the same goddamn time. Which goes to my next point. You allowed people to walk around the house, which was a crime scene, which contaminated all the possible evidence if someone broke in. I'm pretty sure police know. The first thing you do with the crime scene, mark it off. Don't allow anyone to go past. Don't allow anyone out if they're inside of the crime scene. Do not let anyone in or out. But the fact that people were able to leave, come back, walk around the house willingly is a huge red flag. The second issue is when Detective Linda Arden got there, once again, she allowed people to immediately go around the house to find any evidence and any proof that someone was there. Why are you allowing people to walk around? You should be the one walking around, not them. The third issue, of course, John contaminating the crime scene. Now, of course, I understand he was probably hysterical. He ruined all the possible evidence of finding out what happened. Now, speaking of evidence, there are some things that are found. So the first piece of evidence, which of course is the string around her neck. From further investigation, they found out that the handles on the string that was used to strangle her was actually a paintbrush that was made from a paint kit that Patsy Ramsey had in the house. So the murderer made a weapon out of something in the house, which to some people is like, was it someone who pre-planned this? Or was it something that happened immediately? Meaning that they thought fast and they did that. Another piece of evidence is that on the duct tape that was on her mouth, they did some forensics and they found a piece of fabric that was on Patsy Ramsey's shirt that was stuck to the tape. And then the third piece of evidence was a footprint. But the problem is they have no idea who the footprint belongs to because so many people walked around the house. Because by the way, the footprint was found next to Jonbenet's body. And John went into that room. There's no way of knowing who did it belong to. So there's so many things that could have been possible evidence to make this an easy case that was ruined. Which goes to the conspiracies of what happened. So the first conspiracy includes the mother, Patsy Ramsey. It was said that Patsy had an issue with Jonbenet wetting her bed. And some people believe that one night Jonbenet wet her bed, her mother got upset and things just went wrong. When Jonbenet was alive, people noticed bruises on her. So people thought she lived in an abusive household. That's conspiracy number one. Conspiracy number two is the father. So upon further forensics and details that they looked into the investigation, they found out that Jonbenet had man's DNA on her pants and in her underwear. So that's when speculation arose of the father sexually abusing her daughter. So that made people think that John Ramsey was a child molester, that Patsy knew about it and she said nothing about it, she would ignore it, and then maybe one day she caught John doing something wrong, things went left, Jonbenet ended up dead. How? I don't know. And then there's theory number three, the brother. So after they did an autopsy on Jonbenet, they found out that she had just freshly ate a snack before she was killed. So that kind of points to that she was awake and alive hours before she was killed. Because if you remember in the timeline, I told you that Jonbenet was already asleep by the time she got home. But in between that time, she probably woke up, had a snack, and went back to bed, or was going back to bed, but then something happened. They found the snack of like pineapples, and they found a glass. And on that glass, they found DNA that pointed to Burke. And some people are saying that what happened that night was Burke and Jonbenet got in a fight, you know, a little sibling rivalry. Things went wrong. He took a flashlight that was found on the counter. They're saying he took that flashlight, hit her upside her head, and it knocked her unconscious. Patsy came downstairs when she heard yelling, saw what happened. Patsy and John were scared to report it to the police. They didn't want Burke to go to jail because he was so young. So they staged it as a home invasion. And then it made it seem like it was a kidnapping. Patsy wrote the note. They allowed some time to pass before Patsy called. Because also something that someone had pointed out, one of the neighbors, was that Patsy was wearing the same exact clothes she had on at the Christmas party that she went to. Hair was still, you know, done, makeup was still fresh. She never went to sleep. So then that kind of adds to the story of like, okay, well, the mother knew what happened. Either she did it or she knew what happened, and she helped cover it up, make it look like someone came into the house. A lot of people were saying that the mother did it. So then time went on. Suspects came along the way. One of the suspects were the housekeeper. They brung her up because she had a key to the house. Maybe she came in one night, maybe she did it, maybe she had some motive to kill Jonbenet for some reason. Another suspect was a local Santa Claus in the town. But basically they were saying that he had secretly met with Jonbenet at the Christmas party, and the Santa will refer to Jonbenet as a special friend. So some people were saying that Santa Claus broke to the house, sexually abused her, and then killed her. But then comes the last and final suspect called John Carr. There's a lot of Johns in this, I keep getting confused. The last suspect, John Carr. So John Carr came forward himself. The police didn't go after him. There was no speculation about him. He came forward himself. And the reason why so many people believed it without evidence was because he had a previous charge of having child pornography on his computer like years ago. And his wife also said that it was one time that he went out of town, said he was doing some business, but in reality he was in Colorado. So people believed that it was him because he was in that location when that happened. There hasn't really been any solid evidence whatsoever, which is why this case is still open and why this case is still going on. Like, what does a 6-year-old have to do to make you so upset that you have to kill them? So to this day, no one's arrested. As far as I know, no one's arrested for it. So I think John Carr is actually free at this point. Some people still believe it was the mother who did it. Now, of course, my, I guess, conspiracy theory of the whole situation. So what I believe happened is the part with the mother being abusive. I feel like that was probably true. Maybe at the party, Patsy got a little bit tipsy. She came home. Jonbenet was actually awake. She had a little snack before bed. Maybe before she went to sleep, Jonbenet went to bed. She probably told her mother. Her mother got upset. You know, things went left, and she probably hit her to the point where she hit her head and she went unconscious. She told John. John probably helped set up the whole crime scene, helped write the note, helped make it look like something had happened that they weren't a part of. Burke probably saw what happened, but they probably told him to just stay in his room. When police come, just say you were asleep. What do you think there? Comment down below. I want to hear your conspiracies and your thoughts of who could have did it, what happened, because this whole story is kind of eerie, and it's like something doesn't add up, something's missing. If you're a return subscriber, hey, welcome back, friend. Same thing for you. I want to see what you think happened. Like, what is your theory of what happened that night? If you're a new subscriber, hit watcher, hi, welcome to Heymickey. I'm Mickey, and the idea of trying to figure out that missing puzzle piece that could probably solve so many people's problems, it's fascinating to me. I like to figure out that missing puzzle piece. So it's like, I feel like I know the answer that everyone else is ignoring. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because the time you subscribe, I have a couple of more magical. And don't forget to hit that bell notification to be the first person to watch the video when it first comes out. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.